So, good afternoon, friend. Am I audible? Okay. Okay. So, I'm going to talk about a project which is known as Lakshya. So, the English meaning of Lakshya is target. This was an initiative which was taken in LPG marketing in India when I was working there as Director LPG in Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. I have divided this presentation in two parts. One is what is the relevance of this project. So, then I will be discussing something about a problem which is known as household air pollution. Then I will be discussing in part 2 about the various problems of LPG sector in India and the policy initiatives taken to tackle those issues. So, what is household air pollution? Actually, this is one problem which is not only linked with energy aspect, it is also linked with health as well as environment. It is not a problem which is felt in developed countries, but then it is one problem and developing countries are grappling with this problem in a large manner. Definition wise, household air pollution is caused due to use of solid biomass fuel such as wood, crop residue, cow dung and use of coal for household cooking. This is considered to be a first generation problem. This problem is not visible in developed countries. They have already tackled this issue long time back. But then in most of the poor and developing countries, this is a problem. This is a visible problem. So, if smoke is coming out of your kitchen, you can feel that smoke. Unlike the global warming issue where everybody says that the global mean average temperature is rising, but nobody senses that rise in temperature in day to day situation. So, because of the visibility of this problem, the problem actually requires the urgent attention of the policy makers. This is important from the angle of climate change also because of the visibility as I already mentioned, if the developing countries are not able to tackle this problem, they cannot be taken on board for solving the climate change issue, which is a bigger issue actually. So, how does air pollution look like? So, you can see that smoke is coming out of the stove and the kind of smoke you see here, it is definitely a big health hazard, especially for the lady and the child on the back also. So, how serious is the problem? As per the WHO finding, around 3 billion people are affected across the globe because of this issue. So, roughly 40% of the population in world is affected of this problem. Over 4 million people die prematurely every year because of the household air pollution, and out of these 4 million, 50% deaths are among the children under age 5. So, you can see the seriousness of the issue. Now, this is the global map which shows the death due to household air pollution. So, one can see that the problem is very serious, especially in Southeast Asian countries and in Africa also. Now, this is another map which basically shows the pattern of use of solid fuel in different part of the world. So, it is more or less same pattern. You can see that the more than 50% people are actually using solid biomass fuel in Southeast Asian countries or in Africa. Now, if I have to tell the impact, so especially the health impact is very important in case of household air pollution. It results in a number of diseases, particularly among the women and children. And the study have shown that 12% death are due to pneumonia, 34% due to stroke, 26% due to heart diseases and 22% due to the pulmonary diseases, and there are cases where the lung cancer has also been attributed to household air pollution. Now, somebody can always ask, if you are burning wood, there should always be carbon dioxide emission, but it is not the case actually. What happens in case of the biomass fuel, the combustion efficiency is not 100%. In fact, it is much lower, it is less than 30%. So, because of this incomplete combustion, we are having several other poisonous elements in the smoke such as carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, small particles, various hydrocarbons. I will not go into the technical detail. The more important aspect is a typical chulha releases 400 cigarette per hour worth of smoke. Chulha means gas stove I am talking about. So, you can see the problem. In 1 hour, you are basically inhaling 400 cigarettes. In terms of the environmental impact, because you are using wood, so it is leading to the problem of deforestation, and then because of the incomplete combustion, you are having several greenhouse gases also, for example, carbon monoxide, NOx, and these gases are having higher global warming potential than the carbon dioxide. Studies have also shown that household air pollution contribute to the outdoor air pollution to the tune of 25%. And so, we can always say that household air pollution is a problem which is also related with global warming. In fact, it is a subset of global warming. Global warming is a bigger issue, but then household problem is an urgent issue. In terms of the economic impact of household air pollution, there is a study of WHO which says that 2.7% of the total global burden of ill health measured as dailies is due to indoor air pollution. No, I am talking about daily. Daily is basically disability adjusted life years. It is basically a measure of productivity. So, if you are losing daily, you are losing productivity. Now, out of this daily loss, 80% occurs in Africa and South Asia. Indoor air pollution ranks 8th globally among the risk factors and 4th in developing countries. I will tell you the financial implication of daily in this slide. So, what is the status of HAP in India? 400 to 550,000 deaths in India are due to household air pollution every year. Most of the population in rural area is still using solid biomass fuel. So, the problem is there. The clean fuel expansion has been there in urban area, but still the people in rural areas using solid biofuel. This is the second most important health risk factor in my country. You can see it from the graph also. This was the finding of WHO regarding the burden of disease attributable to 15 leading risk factors. So, you can see that household air pollution at the second position. It is leading to the problem of respiratory diseases, cardiac diseases, diarrheal and infection related diseases. Now, in my country, 31.4 million dailies are lost every year on account of household air pollution. Now, the research has declared that one daily loss in my country is equivalent to $1,000 approximately. So, if you multiply 31.4 million with 1,000, you get the financial implication of this problem. So, it is 31.4 billion worth of productivity is lost only because of household air pollution. And this is in my country. The problem is much more serious in Africa, where more than even 80 or 90% people are using solid biomass fuel. It is not a problem in Cameroon if the person is not there, but yeah, it is not a problem in your country, but then there are several countries, especially in the Central African region, where this is a big problem. Now, how to tackle this issue? It is very simple. You have to basically replace all solid biofuel from the clean fuels. Now, what are the clean fuel options available? First is the biogas, and it is a very cheap option because you can use the local resources for generation of biogas. You need to construct a biogas plant, and then the biogas can be used for as a fuel. But the problem with biogas is the absence of a sustainable technology. Historically, it has been found that biogas plant faces severe maintenance failure issue. Now, in absence of the in case of the failure of the biogas plant, you are not having biogas. So, you cannot be dependent only on this fuel as a primary source for cooking purpose. Another option which has been explored is the improved cook stoves. There is a big NGO in this regard, Global Cook Alliance. So, they are basically involved in improving the design of the cook stoves. So, what they think that we should still use solid biomass fuel, but then we have to improve the design so that the combustion efficiency can be improved. Now, the problem is that even if you are increasing the combustion efficiency, it is not going to be as high as in case of burning of liquefied petroleum gas or in case of the natural gas, where you get the combustion efficiency close to 100%. So, the thinking is that it should be used, but it should be used as an interim solution till we get the other cleaner fuels stabilized in that particular region. Now, natural gas is a very good option. In fact, if you see it from the health perspective only, we have some problems. These problems are not there, especially if I take the case of Turkey, this is not a problem. You are having sufficient amount of natural gas. But then in my case, the domestic production is very less. Then natural gas has got several other usage also, and which are equally important. For example, natural gas is used for production of fertilizer. Now, fertilizer is also a basic necessity in a way. It is also used as the transportation fuel also. So, now it is the government which has to decide what should be the priority for usage of natural gas. Another problem with the natural gas is that you cannot transport natural gas in packed form, in the cylinder form. So, you need to develop a piped network. Now, in my country, there are several cities which are so congested that it is very difficult to construct a piped network to carry this natural gas up to the household. And even if it is feasible, it takes so much time and cost that it cannot be used as a quick solution for expansion of clean fuel as on mass scale. Recently, two other problems have also been associated with the natural gas. One is that you cannot transport natural gas in gaseous form, you have to liquefy it, and then there are a specialized LNGs carrier, liquefied natural gas carrier. They basically transport natural gas from one country to another country. Now, this entire process is energy intensive process, it consumes a lot of energy also. The second problem is that at the source of natural gas, there is every chance that the methane will leak into the atmosphere. Now, methane is a very high global warming potential gas, 1000 times higher global warming potential than the carbon dioxide. So, if you see the natural gas from source to end consumer, it is not an eco-friendly solution. But if you see only from the health perspective, it is a clean solution. Next option is solar. Now, solar is a good fuel because it is a renewable resource, there is zero emission. But the problem with solar is the availability of light, especially during the rainy season. So, you have the solar option, it should be there in your policy making, but then it cannot be used as a mass scale clean fuel expansion program. Now, electricity is the cleanest option available for tackling this issue, the ease of use, and then there is no emission of any kind of poisonous gases, and it is in fact the most popular option in developed countries for cooking purpose also. It comes at the top of energy ladder also. The problem in my country and in several developing countries is the availability of electricity. We are facing shortage of electricity. We are not able to provide electricity even for the purpose of lighting. So, how can you think of using this option as for the cooking purpose only? And then the cost factor, because if you see the cost of electricity as a cooking fuel with respect to LPG and other cleaner fuel, it is costlier option. And that brings us to the liquefied petroleum gas. Now, these are the advantages of liquefied petroleum gas. It is versatile, it is having better transportability because you can carry liquefied petroleum gas in cylinder form anywhere. The technology available in liquefied petroleum gas supply chain is very robust. It is not dependent on weather, so it can be supplied anytime during rainy season, any corner of the country, any part. It is not as costly as electricity, and the creation of infrastructure for handling LPG is also cheaper. It is safe, of course. So, looking at the pros and cons of various options, in many developing countries, it has been decided that LPG is probably the best clean fuel for the purpose of mass expansion. And that brings us to part 2 of this presentation, where I will be discussing about the problems of LPG sector in my country and the initiatives taken. But before that, I just want to give brief idea about the LPG supply chain. So there are two kind of sources in LPG production. One is LPG can be imported or LPG can be produced from refineries and processing plant. It goes to a storage terminal. From storage terminal, it goes to bottling plant. It is bottled there. Then from bottling plant, it goes to the distributors in India, and from there it goes to the end consumer. End consumer could be household, could be industrial consumer, or LPG can also be used as transportation fuel, auto LPG sector. Now, if you see the segment, LPG segment in India, you will find that close to 90% of LPG consumption in domestic sector. And out of this 90%, close to 95% is controlled by government oil companies. So the private sector in domestic segment is very less. There is a reason, I will tell you the reason subsequently. Now, this is important slide just to keep in mind, because I am going to talk something about the issue related with this. In my country, there is a rule that every household is entitled for only one LPG connection registered with the government oil companies. Now, it does not mean that we are restricting the LPG consumption, because every LPG connection has some amount of subsidized LPG also. So, we are restricting the subsidy, but you can consume as much LPG as you want. Now, this is the pricing build-up of LPG. So, in case of domestic LPG, it is linked with the international prices. There is a concept of import parity price. So, LPG prices are that way linked with international price. Then you add certain elements and then you get the non-subsidized price. Then the government of India provides subsidy up to a certain quantity on LPG to household consumer. So, we have two types of prices. One is the subsidized price of LPG. It is up to a certain limit, and beyond that, if you are consuming, then you will have to pay the market price. Now, the purpose was to protect the purchasing power of the poor and to ensure access to the cleaner fuel, but then it has led to an important issue. Because of this dual pricing, it has led to the black marketing also. Now, there is always a tendency of subsidized LPG going into the commercial sector because of the price difference, and the estimated leakage is to the tune of 20%. Now, just to give you the amount, in 13-14, when the oil prices were very high, India has got roughly $8 billion of subsidy burden only on account of domestic LPG. Now, considering this 20% leakage, it comes out to be roughly $1.6 billion. It is a huge amount. We decided to tackle several problems of LPG marketing. This is the summary of the impact. So, before the policy initiatives were taken, the LPG coverage in country was less than 40%. Once these policy initiatives have been taken, especially in last 4 years, the coverage has gone up to 65%. In last 5 years, we have added 70 million households into the LPG network. Every year, we are releasing 15 million connections. In fact, every day we are delivering more than 4 million cylinders. So, this is the kind of market we are having, and we are hopeful that with the current growth rate, probably 90% of the population will be covered with the LPG in near future. Sorry. Yeah. So, what are the problems of LPG sector? One is that India is LPG deficit country. In 14-15, we have total LPG consumption close to 17 million metric ton. India is probably 4th largest consumer of LPG in world, and out of this 17 million, more than 40% was imported. So, that way, if you are going to expand LPG coverage in country, you need more LPG. Unless you are able to increase the production, you will have to be dependent more on import. And that is why there is a role of curbing all kinds of malpractices also, so as to avoid the wastage. Now, it is less affordable than the biofuel, because wood and crop residue, everything is available free of cost. So, how to motivate poor people to switch over to LPG is a challenge. There is a lack of information visibility. There was a lack of information visibility in LPG marketing. Primarily, it was a government controlled business. Then the provision of subsidy has also led to the diversion of subsidized LPG into the commercial segment. It has increased the financial burden also. I had already mentioned that we had almost $8 billion subsidy burden. And if you are not registered with government oil companies, you are not entitled for subsidy. So, if you are taking LPG from a private sector, you will not be given subsidy benefit. Now, this single factor has basically made this sluggish growth in private sector. In fact, the private sector people are demanding that subsidy benefit should also be given to them, but there are several issues. Now, all these problems basically inhibits the LPG expansion. If you categorize these problems, you get 3 A's basically: availability, accessibility, it could be because of the poor consumer services, could be because of expansion problem, or could be because of the malpractices, and then the affordability. So, 3 A's are basically the issues in LPG marketing. Now, some of the initiatives which we undertook during last couple of years. So, in order to expand the LPG coverage in the country, we developed a vision 2015. Now, we are in the process of developing another vision also. We focused on those areas where the LPG coverage was very low, so especially the rural area, and we found that the conventional distribution model was not economically viable. So, it was an innovation, and we had created a small scale distribution model. So, to enable the people in rural area get LPG easily. We also had set a target that every block in the country will have at least one distributorship. Now, those who are from my country, they know that there are more than 6,000 blocks in the country, and when I left the ministry, 5,700 blocks were already covered, and at least one distributorship was there in every block there. The idea was to bring LPG closer to the people. Then we also took aggressively the market restructuring. So, in one market there was only one distributorship. So, we decided that we will create more number of distributorship. The idea was that if the people are willing to buy LPG, they need not go very far. The LPG should be available nearby. And then we also introduced the smaller size cylinder. This is something important because it has been implemented in Indonesia also, in Ecuador also, where they found that affordability is a major issue because people are not able to buy large amount of LPG at a time because of the higher price. So, we also implemented smaller LPG cylinders. The segments focus were 2. One was the poor people who were not able to afford LPG, and we also found that there is a segment in a city which is constantly moving from one city to another city, and they are not able to register themselves for LPG connection. So, for them we provided a facility that we will keep the LPG cylinders at various shops. You can go there, pay the price, take the cylinder in the similar way as you are getting the grocery items. So, you need not have the registered LPG connection for this purpose. Now, in order to improve the information visibility, so to improve the transparency in the LPG marketing, we developed mylpg.in, a portal, and the idea was basically to bring as much information in public domain as possible. So, now in fact, sitting at this place, if you know the consumer number of anybody, I can see the LPG consumption data of that person, how much cylinder he has consumed in the last few years. So, that kind of information visibility is there. Now, this is not only the information sharing portal, several applications have also been built into the system. So, now you can book the cylinder online, you can make a request online for release of connection, or you can basically switch over from one distributor to another distributor if you are not satisfied with the performance. The delivery performance of the distributor is also available in public domain. So, all these things have basically improved the consumer services. You can file grievances online also, the tracking is very easy. And I will just give the example in next slide, how merely the visibility of information can improve the service level. When we launched this portal, we said our Minister of Petroleum to provide his LPG consumer number. He gave us his LPG consumer number, we checked it, and then he was shocked to see that so many cylinders were booked in his name. He was not knowing that so much of LPG somebody has booked in his name. And then further investigation was carried out, and we found that distributor was basically diverting the subsidized LPG for the black marketing purpose. So, we took further action. So, the information visibility itself has given a kind of auditing power. So, you can audit the high consumption consumers, you can audit the multiple connection holders also. Now, this is one example which we have done nothing great. In fact, what we did, we knew that booking data and delivery data is available in the system. So, we know that how much time distributor is taking to deliver a cylinder from booking to delivery time. Now, based on this information, we calculated his performance, quarterly performance, and we rated him on a scale from 1 star to 5 star. So, if he is delivering cylinders within 2 days time, then he was rated excellent distributor. If he was not able to deliver cylinder within 8 days time, he was rated poor. We displayed this information in the public domain. Now, it has created so much pressure on distributors that they started improving their service, delivery services. And the result was visible, because we found that when we launched this concept, the 5-star rating distributors were only 40%, and within a span of 10 months time, this has gone up to 70%. Now, the another advantage of this was that the company officers who were supervising these distributors, they were able to see which distributor is not performing well. So, they can focus on that distributor, understand his problem. There could be a possibility that he was doing something mischievous also, and they can then take the course correction also. Now, once the delivery performance of the distributor was available online, then we thought let's go further and empower the consumers. So, we introduced the concept of portability. It's like mobile portability. So, what we did, that if you are not satisfied with your distributor, you can change distributor now online. And we also made a point that once the request has been received online, then it is the responsibility of company officers and distributor to close that request, either in favor or convince the consumer that you are going to improve the performance. So, it was online available. So, we created a cluster. So, initially if you are attached with distributor A, you are attached for lifelong. Then we thought, let's club it and 5 or 6 distributors in a market, and then the consumer was allowed to move from A to B or any other place. Now, it has created 2 impacts. One was that it has empowered consumer, because now he can make his decision. And the second was that if distributor realized that if the consumer is moving away from him, then he is going to lose his business. So, he has to improve the performance. In fact, it was observed in many cases that the distributor has approached consumer, he had tried to understand their problem, and then he had taken the corrective actions also. So, and again it has also generated a kind of competition among the distributor to capture the consumers, and overall it has improved the distribution process also. Now, we know that one household is only eligible for one connection, but in reality 2 problems were observed. One, that several households were having more than 1 LPG connections just to get more quota of subsidized LPG. And we also found that distributors were creating ghost and fake connections in the name of different households. Again the same thing, because more amount of subsidized LPG is available for diversion purpose. We realized this problem, and then we launched an initiative in October 2012 using the information technology We did some, we basically made some algorithm, and then we subjected the LPG database to that algorithm, and then we detected almost 10 million such fake and multiple connections, and then we blocked them, and that has resulted in an estimated recurring saving of $500 million. Now, once this deduplication mechanism was stabilized and online portal was there, we knew that the data is also available on centralized server. Then we had gone for this facility, online release of new LPG connection. Those of you who are in India, they know that how difficult it is to get the LPG connection from the distributor. So this was meant for tackling that particular problem. Now, what was happening initially? Initially, if you wish to have LPG connection, you have to physically go to the distributor shop, take the form, fill up, submit the proof of address, and submit physically to the distributor. You will be given some waiting list number, and once your turn comes, then you will again be called. You go again to the distributor, you make payment and get the LPG equipment. Now, it was creating a kind of harassment for the consumer, so we decided to do two things. One is, we said that we are going to eliminate completely the physical movement of prospective consumer to the distributor shop. Second, we also said that the distributor and company official will have to close this request in a stipulated time. So we made these people accountable for providing the connection. Now, this has resulted in online release of the connection. So in nutshell, basically you can make a request online, you don't need to go there, you have to make payment online, and ultimately the LPG equipments will be delivered at the doorstep. Now, in order to solve the affordability issue, we had done three things. One is the provision of subsidy. Second was, we implemented some special schemes, because we know that if you are having LPG, you need LPG stove and other equipments which cost actually, and the poor people were not willing to incur that kind of expenditure. So Government of India launched a scheme where we are providing financial assistance to these people. The people who are poor actually, they are provided some financial assistance so that they can buy the initial equipment also. And then I have already discussed that small size cylinders were introduced. The worth mentioning is this scheme. This is called Give It Up scheme. Under this scheme, we are making an appeal to well-off consumer to give up LPG subsidy for poor. We are also saying that the subsidies saved will be used for expansion of LPG among the poor people. It's a unique scheme, because normally when you talk about the policy initiative, it means that you are developing a kind of regulation, you are forcing people to comply with something. But here is one policy initiative where we are seeking voluntary participation of public for doing something good. So we are saying that if you don't want subsidy, you can voluntarily surrender the subsidy. Now, the question always remains, why should we talk about the surrender? Why can't we link subsidy with the income? Now, that's a different issue, because traditionally in India, every household was provided subsidy. Now, if something has already been provided, if you take out that entitlement, it is going to create a negativity, especially among the political people. We realize that it requires a systematic planned campaign, and the result is very encouraging. 5.8 million people have already joined this movement. The internal target is 10 million. Now, in order to tackle the financial issues, three initiatives are worth mentioning here. We restricted the quantity of subsidized LPG to every household. Initially, before this initiative, you were having this facility that as much LPG you want to consume, you can consume, and then you will be paying only subsidized price. We said no, it is not going to happen. We restricted up to the fixed quantity. Then we detected and blocked the multiple connections, and then we recently launched a scheme called Implementation of Direct Benefit Transfer Scheme. It is basically the scheme which changes the subsidy transfer process, in fact, and by this systematic change, you are able to tackle the diversion of the subsidized LPG for commercial sector. Now, I will show you the process also. So, before this scheme was launched, what was happening? So, oil company were selling the cylinder to distributor at subsidized price. Customer was placing an order for LPG. this triggered some process in the server and application, and then the cylinder was billed at the subsidized rate. It was delivered to consumer, consumer paid the subsidized price, and this information was fed into the system. That was the process. But then what was happening here, distributor was booking the cylinder in the name of households without the knowledge of the household. He was getting the cylinder at subsidized price, let us say 400 Indian currency, and then he was selling it at higher price in the commercial market. So, household consumer was not aware about this problem, that his quota of subsidized LPG is getting diverted. The reason was because of the dual pricing, subsidized rate and the market price. So, the basic theme of this process is the introduction of uniform pricing. Now, the cylinder is sold at market price. Customer places an order, same process, it triggers something in the server, and then the cylinder is billed at the market rate. Customer pays the market rate. This information goes to server, and then it triggers the process of providing subsidy to consumer in his bank account. So, we are not taking the subsidy entitlement of consumer. We have only changed the process. Initially, he was paying only subsidized price 400 Indian currency. Now, he is paying 1000 Indian currency, but then his subsidy is getting transferred into his bank account. Now, what is happening? Distributor is getting the cylinder at market price. There is no incentive now for the distributor to sell it at the higher price. This is the market price. So, single uniform pricing has been introduced, and this has basically eliminated the diversion which was happening there, and it was primarily on account of distributor. Now, what has happened actually, I have already mentioned that it is now going directly into the bank account. This scheme has been certified by Guinness Book of World Record as world's largest cash transfer scheme. When I left ministry, 130 million households were already covered under this scheme, and $2 billion had already been transferred into the bank account. This is the kind, in fact, the project itself is a full-fledged presentation because it is a massive project. There were 16,000 LPG distributors, there were more than 10,000 bank branches, then several ministries and other people were involved in this project. And because this was the scheme of Ministry of Petroleum, so we were the nodal agency in fact. The benefit I have already mentioned, the estimated saving is going to be roughly 25%. So, 25% means close to $1 billion. And then obviously, the saving will be utilized for poverty alleviation. In fact, the LPG which was misused, now that LPG is available for expansion in the rural market also. So this is about, in a nutshell, about the brief about the initiatives which the ministry had taken. And thank you for listening, and if you have got any question, I will be happy to answer. I just want to show you what we developed also. You can ask the question. If you type mylpg.in, you will get the site which we developed. Yeah. So, this is the site I was talking about. Well, anyway, he is a famous actor in Indian film industry. Everybody knows his name is Amitabh Bachchan, and we have involved him as a brand ambassador in our Give It Up movement, where we are seeking the voluntary participation from other people. Now, you can also see the Give It Up site. If you wish to go detail, to know detail about this Give It Up scheme, then you have to go to giveitup.in, and then you can find out the details about this scheme as well. Yep.
First of all, thank you very much for that very nice and great presentation. So my question is that people who, like the workers who are working in this LPG industries, like how susceptible they are to clinical abnormalities, because according to the United States Library of Medicine, they say that people who are working in this industry it causes an increased amount of hemoglobin and red blood cells in workers.
Workers?
Yeah, workers who are working.
If you see the LPG supply chain, for example, now LPG is a byproduct. It is coming out of the fractionation of the natural gas, or it is coming out of the refinery also. Word over, probably if you talk about the imported LPG from our country perspective, it is basically the fractionation of gas. So, in terms of the health, I will not be able to tell you what is happening at the source, because that is not my domain in fact. But the more important aspect is that LPG is a clean fuel. My focus is basically that the people who are using wood, coal and other things, which is generating so much of the poisonous element, how to switch these people from dirty fuel to the cleaner fuel. And LPG is considered to be a cleaner fuel. In fact, LPG is carbon neutral fuel also. If you see the global warming potential gases, LPG is not there. LPG is mixture of propane and butane. So, what is happening at the source location, I am not able to tell you.
Other questions? I saw a few other hands up before.
In the direct benefit transfer scheme, is there any consideration of size of household, how many members are there?
No. Direct benefit transfer scheme is only a process of subsidy transfer. So, we should not link this process with the provision of subsidy. That is a different issue, that if a household is consisting of 5 or 6 members, how much subsidy is to be given. Now, that is a political, because you can't take every decision only based on economics. The political factor will also come into the picture. It is purely a subsidy transfer process.
Well, my question is technical. First, it's interesting, very good PowerPoint. It's interesting to me because also back in my country, we're having challenges with subsidy to almost the same amount of close to about $10 billion annually lost to subsidy. For subsidy is a major, 25% of our budget in my country goes on subsidy on petroleum. So this is a very interesting topic to me. However, my question is this. You mentioned natural gas and then you mentioned LPG.
What?
You mentioned natural gas. Natural gas. And then LPG.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the two?
See, natural gas is basically a mixture of different hydrocarbons, but primarily it is a methane, CH3.
CH3.
But LPG is a mixture primarily of propane and butane. But if you talk about LPG from US perspective, it is purely propane. In my country, it is mixture of propane and butane, 60% propane and 40% butane.
And then the natural gas is the methane.
Yeah, so that is why there is a difference. Methane is a global warming potential greenhouse gas, but LPG being a mixture of propane and butane, it is not considered to be a greenhouse gas.
The direct benefit transfer also requires everyone to have a bank account.
Yes.
Can you just give us an idea, is the expansion into rural households the difficulties you are facing?
Yeah.
Because the people there do not have access
Yeah,
to that
yeah,
account?
yeah.
And what was done as a as a prior preparation
Right,
in
right.
terms of our going ahead and opening up
So,
bank account?
incidentally, when this was launched in the second phase in 2014, the government of India has also gone for the financial inclusion also. So, there is some scheme called Jan Dhan scheme. I think Sunil knows pretty much about this scheme. So, there was a drive in country that every household must be having at least one bank account. So, that has also helped us. Now, the question is that see the profile of the LPG consumers so far. Most of the LPG consumers are well-to-do consumers, they are not so poor, and primarily LPG is still an urban-centric fuel. So, when we launched this scheme, we we didn't face so much of problem that consumers are not having. In fact, we did one survey also to find out how many LPG consumers have not have the bank account, and we found that almost 6 or 7% people said that they are not having bank account. We involved Department of Financial Services also in this thing. We shared the list of the consumers also, and we said that you map the bank account details with the list of LPG database to find out the consumers, the possible list of consumers who are not having bank account, and then you open the bank account for such consumers in the targeted fashion.
And they basically link the bank account with the Aadhaar number. This under the direct benefit transfer scheme. This Aadhaar number basically ensures the uniqueness of the individual, so that one person can take one or more connections under this scheme. So one particular person is having the one connection and is ensured by the uniqueness of the Aadhaar number. So they are linking the bank.
Everyone, what is the Aadhaar number?
Aadhaar number is basically a 12-digit number, and it's a unique identification UID number, unique identification number created by the government of India, and they are basically it captures the iris and fingerprint of the 10 fingers, and geographical data also, and biological data also, both they are capturing it. So this way they are ensuring the particular uniqueness of the individuals, and this number they are using for most of the transactions, like providing the subsidy to them, providing the any particular benefit to them. So they are linking this number with the bank account number and this Aadhaar number. What the bankers, they are basically merging this number with the Aadhaar numbers, and this ensuring the uniqueness, and this for making any payment actually, banker they are the MPCI website is there. It's Payment Corporation of India actually. Mappers of the Payment Corporation of India website is there. So through their website actually, they are basically transferring the amount to the bank account of the particular individuals. So this way they are functioning.
So this Aadhaar number has also been used in our scheme, because we have mapped the Aadhaar number with the LPG consumer number in order to have the uniqueness of the consumer. Yep.
Thank you for the presentation. It was very nice. Sorry to come late. I would like to have more, to know more about what we talk on Cameroon. That's my first question.
Okay.
Second question, you mentioned the fact that subsidy was paid through the bank account
Yes.
instead of subsidizing the product. Did you notice cases of abuse?
No, in fact, this process.
Let me just
Okay. Okay.
I mention this because in developing countries, most of the time, when we have such an opportunity, what have you told, we start paying people that doesn't make it. Did you audit the process?
Yes. So, agreed. So, coming to your second question first. When we launched this scheme, we had gone for auditing of the scheme also. We did internal audit as well as the external audit also. So, we don't say that it is a 100% customer friendly process, because so many stakeholders are involved in this process that you are going to have some amount of harassment of the consumer also. But the fact remains, we were facing a bigger problem. We were facing the problem of diversion of subsidy. Now, this is one mechanism which basically introduces the single pricing and eliminate such kind of diversion. We had certain challenges because some consumers said that they had gone to the distributor shop and distributor said that he is not going to link his LPG consumer number with the bank account. So, all those stray cases were there, but the fact remains that this scheme was being monitored at the highest possible level, including the Prime Minister also. My minister used to conduct video conferences with the district collectors at the district level also. We had created a project management unit to monitor this, where the people from different ministries were taken on board, and we were able to solve various issues also. So, issues had been cropping up, but then we were able to solve those issues. Now, with respect to Cameroon, what you wanted to know?
Why it is not using it?
No, I was saying that Cameroon is not having the problem of household air pollution as such. You are surprisingly excluded, happily surprising.
So what do you use? What do you use?
They must be using the clean fuel. They are not using solid biomass fuel. Yeah.
Please, I don't know. So, you notice no case where people receive money, they don't need it? No case?
Did you notice any cases where people receive the subsidy in their bank account?
Yeah, it is.
Genuine fashion.
No, it is not. See, Sunil has already mentioned about the Aadhaar number. So, Aadhaar number basically proves the genuine consumer. You can't create fake Aadhaar number. You need iris, you need biometrics. So, unless a person exists, he cannot, you don't have the fake Aadhaar number. So, that way if you are linking the subsidy with the Aadhaar number, you are ensuring the genuineness of the consumer also. In fact, on mylpg.in, we have created a facility where the consumer was able to see the flow of subsidy. So, he was knowing when the subsidy has been transferred at different stages also. So, he can always find out whether he has actually booked the cylinder and got the subsidy, or somebody else had booked the cylinder and got the subsidy in different bank account. All those things were there, but this has enabled detection of such kind of malpractices also.
Alok, actually, I just wanted to know about the household air pollution, because in the rural area, the problem is more compared to the urban area. And some pocket of the urban area also, there are people using this biofuels and other things. Actually, so is there any study regarding how many numbers of people using the basically biofuels in the rural area as well as in the urban area, and ministry basically focusing on which particular aspect, rural areas or the urban areas, and is there any policy formulation at the ministry level, and how much time they will and how much money they are basically spending to ultimately ensuring that each and every person in the rural area, they will get the basically LPG connections.
Okay. So, if you see the census data of 2011 of India, you will find that almost 67% people are still using solid biofuel, but then the sufficient time has now gone, and based on our analysis, the average is 65%.
The rural or
No, it is across the country. So, if you see the LPG coverage state wise, you will find that there are states, especially Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh, where the LPG coverage is more than 80%, but then there are states like UP, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, where the LPG coverage is less than 30%. And if you see the urban and rural coverage, then urban area LPG coverage will be more than 80% across the country, and in rural area it will be less than 30%. So, I already mentioned this aspect that still most of the population in rural area are using solid biofuel. The issue is that there is something called stacking of fuel. So, what happens, even if the people are having LPG connections, they are not using LPG as a primary fuel, they are keeping it as a stacked fuel. They are first using the solid biofuel because that is available free of cost, and when they find, especially during the rainy season, that it is not available, then they are using LPG. So, when I am talking about the LPG coverage in rural area less than 30%, I mean to say the primary source of fuel. So, they might be having LPG connection, they are not actually using that. Now, the second question is, the second question you were asking, that what ministry has done. So, ministry has already implemented Vision 2015. It was a good vision because we could add roughly 70 million people in the LPG expansion. Now, ministry is developing a plan which will be probably known as Vision 2025, and the target is to cover more than 90% of the population, including the rate of growth of population also, that has also been factored in there, that more than 90% people must be having LPG as a cooking fuel. So, that is the plan ministry is basically developing. In fact, I have already left, but I know that several initiatives have already been taken in this regard.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yes, my question is this. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. I was wondering if you see this as a viable long-term solution, say 100 years from now, with the problematic issues of storage and reliance on multinational oil companies for exportation to India.
See, if you,
It might have changed. I
Yeah, I am coming to that point. So you are absolutely right.
The solution is probably 100 years from now. So.
Yeah. So if you see the energy ladder, there is something called energy ladder, which basically maps on y-axis the cleanliness of the fuel, and on x-axis is maps basically the income of the fuel, income of the people. Electricity comes at the top. So it is the most desirable solution for tackling this issue, because that will eliminate the issue of climate change as well. The problem is that in developing countries, as of now, electricity is not available. And the second problem is that even if the electricity is being produced, what is the source of production of electricity? Mostly coal-based power plants. So if you see from end to end, you will find that even electricity is not a clean fuel as of now. The best desirable alternative is use of electricity as a cooking fuel, and the electricity which has been generated using the renewable resources. So if you see 100 years or 200 years ahead, probably LPG should be used only as a bridging fuel till we stabilize the electricity production using the renewable resources.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah, Alex.